Commander Marcus Vale stood on the bridge of the human ship, New Horizon, as it moved through space toward the crystal planet below. The planet sparkled like a giant diamond against the black sky, its surface covered in tall towers that seemed to be made of pure light. This was Zelthara, the homeworld of the Zilithian Empire. Marcus had trained for this moment his entire life. He was leading humanity's first diplomatic mission to meet an alien civilization that controlled hundreds of star systems. The Zilithians were powerful beyond anything humans had ever seen. They had technology that could destroy entire planets, and minds that could control the thoughts of other beings, but they had never met humans before. "Sir, we're getting a message from the planet," said Lieutenant Sarah Chun from her station. "They're giving us permission to land." Marcus nodded. He wore his best uniform, dark blue with gold stripes that showed his rank. Behind him stood his small team of diplomats, scientists, and guards. They all knew this meeting would decide humanity's future. Either they would make friends with the Zilithians, or humanity would face a war they could not win. The ship landed softly on a platform, made of the same crystal material as the towers around them. The air was breathable, which was good because Marcus wanted to meet the aliens face to face, not through a protective suit. As the ship's doors opened, he took a deep breath and stepped outside. The palace before them was beyond beautiful. It rose into the sky like a mountain of living light, changing colors from blue to purple to gold as they watched. Strange music filled the air, though Marcus could not see where it came from. The ground beneath their feet felt warm and seemed to pulse with energy. "Welcome, humans of Earth." The voice came from everywhere at once, speaking perfect English inside their heads. Marcus felt a strange pressure in his mind, like someone trying to push their way into his thoughts. His team looked uncomfortable, some of them swaying on their feet. "I am Princess Leroy of the Zilithian Empire. Please, follow the path of light to my chambers." A glowing line appeared on the crystal ground, leading toward the palace. Marcus gestured for his team to follow him as they walked along the strange path. The pressure in his mind grew stronger with each step, but he pushed back against it. Whatever the aliens were trying to do to his thoughts, he would not let them succeed. The inside of the palace was even more amazing than the outside. The walls showed moving pictures of alien worlds and strange creatures. Water flowed upward in spirals, and flowers that seemed to be made of pure energy grew from the ceiling. Everything was designed to overwhelm the senses and make visitors feel small. They entered a great hall where Princess Lorelei waited for them. Marcus had expected many things, but not this. The princess was tall and graceful, with skin that looked like it was made of glass. Colors moved beneath her skin like slow lightning, shifting from silver to blue to green. Her eyes were large and dark, and when she looked at him, Marcus felt like she could see into his soul. "Commander Marcus Vale," she said, though her lips did not move. Her voice still came from inside his head. "I have been looking forward to this meeting." "Princess Lorelei," Marcus replied out loud, his voice echoing in the great hall. "Thank you for receiving us. We come in peace, hoping to learn about your people, and perhaps build a friendship between our worlds." The princess tilted her head, and Marcus felt the pressure in his mind increase. His team members were now clearly struggling. Lieutenant Chun was staring at the princess with blank eyes, and Dr. Williams was nodding slowly, as if agreeing with something only he could hear. But Marcus felt nothing except the pressure, which he continued to resist. "How interesting," the princess said, and for the first time, she spoke with her actual voice instead of projecting into their minds. Her voice was musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "You are not affected by my thoughts." "No," Marcus said simply. "I am not." The colors under her skin shifted to bright gold, and Marcus sensed this meant surprise or excitement. "In 3,000 years of my empire's expansion, No species has ever resisted our mental gifts. How do you do this? I don't know, Marcus answered honestly. Perhaps humans are just stubborn. The princess laughed, a sound like crystal bells. Stubborn. Yes, I can sense that about you. She gestured to chairs that appeared from nowhere, made of the same crystal as everything else. Please, sit. We have much to discuss. As they sat down, Marcus felt the pressure on his team's minds lessen. They blinked and shook their heads, looking confused but more alert. The princess had been testing them, he realized, seeing how easily she could control human minds. Your empire is vast, Marcus said. We have heard stories of hundreds of worlds under your rule. How did you build such a large civilization? We offered other species what they needed most, the princess replied. Advanced technology, longer lives, protection from their enemies, solutions to their problems. In exchange, they joined our empire willingly. And if they refused? The colors under her skin shifted to red for just a moment. No species has ever refused. When beings understand the benefits we offer, they always choose to join us. Marcus nodded slowly. I see. And what benefits would you offer humanity? Oh, so many things, the princess said, leaning forward with interest. We could cure your diseases, extend your lives to thousands of years, give you ships that could cross the galaxy in days instead of years. We could solve your problems with war, hunger, and environmental damage. All we ask in return is that humanity accepts the wisdom of our guidance. The way she said guidance made Marcus's skin crawl. He had studied the history of empires, both human and alien. When someone offered to solve all your problems in exchange for accepting their guidance, they were really asking you to give up your freedom. That is indeed a generous offer, Marcus said carefully. We will need time to consider it and discuss it with our people on Earth. The princess smiled, showing teeth like small pearls. Of course. But Commander, surely you can see the logic in our offer. Why would any intelligent species choose to struggle alone when they could have everything they desire? Marcus met her dark eyes steadily. Because sometimes the struggle is what makes us who we are. The colors under her skin shifted again, this time to a pattern Marcus had not seen before. Purple mixed with silver in slow waves. He had the feeling he had said something that truly surprised her. How fascinating, she whispered. You may be the most interesting species we have ever encountered. The negotiations began the next day in a room that changed its appearance every few minutes. Sometimes the walls showed peaceful earth forests, sometimes alien sunsets, and sometimes the deep darkness of space filled with stars. Marcus suspected the princess was trying to make him feel comfortable or homesick, but he kept his attention focused on her words rather than the shifting scenery. Let me show you what we can offer your people, Princess Liraili said. She waved her hand, and the air filled with moving pictures. Humans appeared, but they looked different. Taller, stronger, with perfect skin and bright eyes that seemed to glow with health. This is what your people could become, she explained. No more sickness, no more aging, no more death from accidents or disease. We can rewrite your genetic code to make you nearly immortal. Marcus watched the images carefully. The humans in the pictures looked beautiful, but there was something wrong with their expressions. They all had the same peaceful smile, the same calm look in their eyes. They looked like people who never questioned anything. And this, the princess continued, showing new images of Earth. The planet was covered in crystal cities like the ones on Zelthara. The oceans were clean, the air was pure, and strange flying vehicles moved between the glittering towers. We can heal your world's damage and give you technology beyond your dreams. It looks impressive, Marcus said. But I noticed something. In all these pictures of improved humans, they all look very similar. Do they still think their own thoughts? The colors under the princess's skin shifted to orange, which Marcus was beginning to understand meant mild irritation. They think better thoughts. Happier thoughts. Why would anyone want to keep thoughts that bring pain or anger or fear? Because those feelings help us learn and grow, Marcus replied. Pain teaches us to avoid danger. Anger motivates us to fight injustice. Fear keeps us alive in dangerous situations. But why choose to suffer when you could choose to be content? The princess asked, genuinely confused. Every species we have welcomed into our empire tells us they are grateful to be free from such burdens. Marcus looked at her carefully. Princess, may I ask you a personal question? Of course. Are you happy? The question seemed to surprise her. The colors under her skin went through several rapid changes, blue, green, purple, then settled on a dark gray that looked sad. I am content. I have purpose. I serve the Empire and help other species find peace. That's not what I asked. Are you happy? For a long moment, the princess was silent. Around them, the room's walls showed images of Marcus's own memories, his childhood home, his training academy, his friends laughing around a dinner table. He realized she was reading his mind, looking for something. You have such strange emotions, she said finally. When I look into your thoughts, I see pain mixed with joy, sadness mixed with hope. How do you function with such chaos in your mind? The chaos is what makes the joy meaningful, Marcus explained. If we were always happy, happiness would have no value. It's the contrast that gives life meaning. The princess stood and walked to the window, which showed the crystal landscape of her homeworld. I have never experienced what you call happiness. I know duty, purpose, satisfaction when a task is completed well. But this feeling you call joy, it is foreign to me. Marcus felt something shift in the conversation. For the first time, the princess seemed vulnerable, unsure. He wondered if this was another manipulation tactic, or if she was showing him something real. What was your childhood like? He asked. I was taught from birth to serve the Empire. My mental abilities were trained and strengthened. I learned to negotiate, to persuade, to lead. There was no time for what you would call play or exploration. Did you have friends? The gray color under her skin deepened. Friends? No. How could I have friends when I can read and influence every mind around me? Others either fear me or fall under my influence. True friendship requires equality, does it not? Marcus felt a stab of sympathy for her. Despite all her power, despite ruling an empire that spanned the galaxy, she was alone. More alone than any human could ever be. Yes, he said softly. Friendship requires equality. The princess turned back to him, and her large dark eyes seemed to be studying him with new interest. You feel sorry for me. Why? Because you've been given everything except the one thing that makes life worth living. And what is that? The freedom to choose who you want to be. She was quiet for a long time. The room around them stopped changing, settling on a view of a peaceful meadow under a gentle sun. Tell me about freedom, she said finally. For the next several hours, Marcus talked about humanity's history. He told her about the struggles for independence, about people who chose to die rather than live as slaves, about the long fight to build societies where individuals could make their own choices. He explained how humans had often chosen difficult freedom over comfortable servitude. The princess listened with growing fascination. But surely some choices are wrong? Surely some people make decisions that harm themselves and others? Yes, Marcus admitted. Freedom includes the freedom to make mistakes. But we believe that a life lived by your own choices, even if some of those choices are wrong, is more meaningful than a perfect life lived according to someone else's plan, even if those choices lead to suffering. Even then, because the suffering is ours, chosen by us, not imposed by someone else. The princess walked closer to him, and Marcus felt the mental pressure return, but different this time. Instead of trying to control his thoughts, she seemed to be trying to understand them. "Your mind is so strange," she murmured. "You think of your mate back on Earth, and even though you miss her, the sadness makes your love feel stronger. You remember friends who died in wars, and even though you grieve for them, their sacrifice makes you more determined to protect others. How do you bear such contradictions?" "Practice," Marcus said with a small smile. "Lots of practice." The colors under his skin shifted to something Marcus had not seen before, a soft gold mixed with silver that seemed almost warm. "I find myself curious about these human contradictions. Tell me more about this concept you call love." Marcus hesitated. Something in her voice, in the way the colors moved under her skin, warned him that they were entering dangerous territory. The princess was learning about human emotions, and he sensed that this knowledge could be the most powerful weapon in her arsenal. But as he looked into her dark eyes, he also sensed that her curiosity might be genuine. For the first time in her long life, she was encountering ideas that her empire's philosophy could not explain or control. "Love," Marcus said carefully, "is when you care about someone else's happiness more than your own. It means accepting them exactly as they are, without trying to change or control them." The princess stared at him for a long moment. "But if you do not try to improve them, how do they become better?" "Maybe they don't need to become better. Maybe they're already perfect, just as they are." The warm colors under her skin grew brighter, and Marcus realized he had just given her a very dangerous gift, the knowledge that someone could be valued exactly as they were, without needing to be molded into something else. He also realized that he had just described something the Zilithian Empire could never offer its subjects: unconditional acceptance. 5 days had passed since Marcus and his team arrived on Zelthara. Each morning brought new meetings, new discussions about humanity's future. The formal negotiations continued in the great halls. But Marcus found himself spending more and more time in private conversations with Princess Lorole. She had arranged for them to meet in a garden that existed inside the Crystal Palace. Real plants grew here, brought from dozens of different worlds. The air smelled of flowers Marcus had never seen before, and gentle streams of water flowed in impossible patterns through the air above their heads. "I have been thinking about what you said," the princess told him as they walked along a path made of smooth stones. "About love being acceptance without control. And what do you think about it?" Marcus asked. "I find it difficult to understand. In my empire, love means wanting to improve the beloved. If you see someone making choices that bring them pain, surely the loving thing to do is to help them make better choices." Marcus stopped walking and turned to face her. "But who decides what choices are better? You? Your empire? What if the person disagrees with your definition of improvement?" The colors under his skin shifted to that pattern he was learning meant deep thought. Slow waves of blue and purple. "But what if they're wrong? What if their choices truly do harm them?" "Then they learn from the consequences," Marcus said. "And they become stronger and wiser because they made the mistake themselves and learned from it. Even if the learning is painful? Especially if the learning is painful. The lessons that hurt are the ones we remember best." They continued walking in silence for several minutes. The garden was peaceful, but Marcus could feel tension building between them. These conversations were affecting the princess in ways he could see but not fully understand. The colors under her skin had become more varied over the past few days, showing emotions that seemed new to her. "Marcus," she said suddenly, "I want to ask you something unusual. Will you allow me to see your real thoughts? Not to control them, but to truly understand them?" Marcus felt his heart speed up. Lowering his mental defenses would be incredibly dangerous. The princess could take control of his mind, learn all of humanity's secrets, or simply damage his thoughts beyond repair. But he also sensed that this request was important in a way that went beyond their negotiations. "Why?" he asked. "Because I have never had a real conversation with anyone," she said, and her voice was softer than he had ever heard it. "Everyone I speak with either fears me or falls under my influence immediately. I cannot tell if their words are their true thoughts or simply what they think I want to hear." She stopped and faced him, and Marcus saw something in her dark eyes that looked almost like desperation. "You are the first being I have ever met who can choose what to share with me and what to keep private. But that also means I cannot be certain if you are telling me the truth about these human concepts, or if you are simply saying what you think will protect your species." Marcus understood. She was asking him to trust her completely, to make himself vulnerable in a way that could destroy him. It was perhaps the most dangerous thing anyone had ever asked him to do. But he was also beginning to understand that the princess was trapped in a loneliness deeper than anything he could imagine. For thousands of years, she had never had a single genuine conversation with another being. Every relationship was poisoned by her power and their fear. "If I do this," he said slowly, "will you promise not to use what you see against humanity?" "I promise," she said, and the colors under her skin settled into solid silver, which he had learned meant complete honesty. Marcus closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Then, slowly, carefully, he lowered the mental barriers that had protected him since arriving on this world. The effect was immediate. He felt the princess's consciousness touch his mind, but instead of the invasive pressure he had expected, her touch was gentle, almost hesitant. She moved through his thoughts like someone exploring a garden, careful not to damage anything she found. Marcus felt her discover his memories of Earth, the blue skies and green forests, the smell of rain on summer evenings, the sound of children laughing. She saw his family, his friends, the woman he loved who was waiting for his return. She experienced his fears about this mission, his doubts about whether he was making the right choices, but she also felt his determination to protect humanity's freedom, his belief that some things were worth any sacrifice. She experienced the complex mix of emotions that humans lived with every day: love tinged with worry, hope mixed with fear, joy that was made sweeter by the knowledge that it could not last forever. Marcus felt her consciousness recoil in shock. The intensity of human emotion was overwhelming her. She was used to the calm, controlled thoughts of her subjects, not the wild storm of feelings that filled every human mind. "I'm sorry," he said, starting to raise his defenses again. "It's too much." "No, wait," she said urgently. "Please, let me understand this." She approached his emotions more carefully this time, like someone learning to swim in a rough sea. Marcus felt her experience his love for the woman waiting for him on Earth, not just the pleasant feeling of affection, but the whole complex reality of it. The way love could hurt when you were separated from the beloved. The way it made you want to be a better person. The way it made you vulnerable, but also strong. She felt his grief for friends who had died, and through that grief, she understood how precious life became when you knew it could end. She experienced his anger at injustice, and through that anger, she felt his passion for protecting the innocent. Most importantly, she felt his fear that he might fail his mission, fear that humanity might be destroyed, fear that he might make the wrong choice. But she also felt how he used that fear to make himself more careful, more thoughtful, more determined. This is impossible," she whispered, her actual voice breaking. "How do you function with all of this chaos in your mind?" "We don't just function," Marcus said gently. "We live." He felt her consciousness pull back from his mind, and he carefully raised his defenses again. When he opened his eyes, he saw that the princess was crying. Tears like liquid crystal ran down her face, and the colors under her skin were shifting rapidly through patterns he had never seen before. "I felt it," she said in wonder. I felt what you call joy. When you remembered your friends laughing, when you thought of your love's smile, there was this feeling like light exploding inside you. How do you bear such intensity? Practice, Marcus said again, but gently. And also because we know that the intensity makes everything more real, more meaningful. She wiped the tears from her face with shaking hands. All my life, I have believed that the Empire's way was best. We remove pain, anger, fear, uncertainty. We give our subjects calm, peaceful lives. But now I understand what we take from them. What's that? Everything that makes existence worth experiencing. They sat down on a bench near a fountain that sprayed water in the shape of dancing figures. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Marcus could see that the princess was struggling with ideas that challenged everything she had been taught. "Marcus," she said finally, "what you showed me, is that what all humans experience?" "More or less. The details are different for everyone, but yes. Every human lives with that storm of emotions. And you wouldn't trade it for the peace my empire offers?" Marcus thought carefully before answering. "No, because that storm is what makes us who we are. Take away our pain, and we can't appreciate our joy. Take away our fear, and we can't feel brave. Take away our anger, and we lose our passion for justice." The princes looked at him with an expression he could not read. "You have given me a great gift today, Marcus. You have shown me what I have been missing my entire life." "And what's that?" "The experience of being truly alive." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Something in her voice, in the way she was looking at him, warned him that his gift might have consequences he had not expected. The princes had tasted real emotion for the first time, and he could see that it had changed something fundamental in her. He just hoped that change would not destroy them both. The summons came at dawn on the 10th day. Marcus was awakened by a sound like thunder rolling through the crystal palace. When he looked out the window of his guest quarters, he saw that the sky above Zelthara had changed from its usual soft blue to deep purple. In the distance, massive ships appeared in the atmosphere, war vessels with weapons that could destroy continents. "Commander Vale," came the princess's voice in his mind. But this time, it carried an edge of fear. "My father wishes to see you, immediately." Marcus dressed quickly and met the princess in the corridor. Her usual grace was gone, replaced by nervous energy that made the colors under her skin shift rapidly between orange and red. "I'm sorry," she said without looking at him. "I tried to persuade him to give us more time." They walked through passages Marcus had never seen before, deeper into the palace. The crystal walls here were darker, and the air felt heavy with power. Other Zilithians stood along their path, tall, imposing figures whose skin showed patterns of deep red and black. Marcus could feel their minds pressing against his, testing his defenses. The throne room was vast beyond imagination. The ceiling disappeared into darkness high above, and the walls curved away until they were lost in shadow. At the center of this space sat a figure that could only be the Emperor himself. He was twice the size of his daughter. Ancient beyond measure, with skin that showed patterns of pure white light against absolute black. When he spoke, his voice did not come from his mouth, but seemed to emerge from the very walls of the palace. "So," the Emperor said, "you are the human who thinks his small species can resist the will of the Zilithian Empire." Marcus stepped forward, fighting the urge to kneel. The pressure against his mind was enormous. Not the gentle probing he had felt from the princess, but a crushing force that threatened to shatter his thoughts entirely. "I am Commander Marcus Vale, representing humanity in these negotiations." "Negotiations?" The Emperor's laughter was like the sound of worlds cracking. "There are no negotiations. There is only acceptance or destruction." The Emperor gestured, and the air filled with images. Marcus saw Earth as it appeared from space, beautiful and blue. Then the image changed, showing massive Zilithian fleets surrounding the planet. The message was clear. Your species has had 10 days to consider our generous offer, the Emperor continued. My daughter tells me you have questions about our methods, concerns about your independence. These concerns are irrelevant. Marcus felt sweat running down his back, but he kept his voice steady. With respect, Your Majesty, humanity requires more time to make such an important decision. Time? The white patterns on the Emperor's skin blazed brighter. Every species asks for more time. It is always the last request of the condemned. Princess Lorelei stepped forward. Father, if I may, you may not. The Emperor's mental voice was like a physical blow. You have already wasted too much time on this matter. Your methods have grown soft. Marcus saw the princess flinch as if she had been struck. The colors under his skin went completely gray, and he realized the Emperor was punishing her mentally for something. Here is my final offer. Human, the Emperor said, turning his terrible attention back to Marcus. Your species will submit to the Empire within 1 standard day, or we will demonstrate what happens to those who refuse our gifts. The air filled with new images, planets stripped bare, cities reduced to dust, entire civilizations wiped from existence. We have done this before, when lesser species proved too stubborn to accept wisdom. Their worlds are now empty, their names forgotten. Marcus felt his heart pounding, but he forced himself to meet the Emperor's gaze. And if we submit, your people will be relocated to suitable worlds within the Empire. The useful ones will be given new purposes. The others will be optimized until they find contentment in their new lives. The images showed humans with the same peaceful expressions Marcus had seen before, blank, smiling faces that showed no trace of individual thought or will. His stomach turned as he understood what optimization really meant. I will need to consult with my team and send word to Earth, Marcus said. You will give me your answer now, the Emperor replied. Submit or watch your species burn. The silence in the throne room was absolute. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat, could feel the weight of every human life resting on his next words. 6 billion people on Earth, all depending on a choice he had to make in this moment. He began, then stopped. What could he say? How could he condemn humanity to destruction? But how could he agree to their enslavement? Father, wait. Princess Lorelei's voice cut through the silence. She stepped between Marcus and the Emperor, and Marcus was shocked to see her standing straight and proud instead of cowering before her father's power. There is a third option, she said. The Emperor's skin patterns shifted to deep red. Explain yourself. The human shows promise. His species' resistance to mental influence is unique. Rather than destroying or simply absorbing them, why not bind them to us through alliance instead of conquest? Alliance? The Emperor's voice dripped with contempt. With these primitive creatures? Through marriage, the princess said, her voice growing stronger. Let me wed their representative. Humanity will join the Empire not as subjects, but as partners. Their independence will be preserved under my protection. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. He turned to look at the princess, but she was staring at her father, waiting for his response. Interesting, the Emperor mused. The white patterns on his skin dimmed slightly as he considered. You would bind yourself to this creature? Take responsibility for his entire species? I would. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried a note Marcus had not heard before, something that might have been amusement. Very well. Human, my daughter offers you a choice your species has never been given. Submit to the Empire as subjects, face destruction as rebels, or accept alliance through marriage to my heir. Choose now. Marcus stared at the princess, trying to understand what was happening. She turned to face him, and he saw something in her dark eyes that made his chest tight. It was not just political calculation or a desire to save lives. She was looking at him the way his beloved looked at him back on Earth. "Princess," he said quietly, "may I speak with you privately before I answer?" The Emperor made a sound like distant thunder. "You have 5 minutes." The princess led Marcus to a small alcove at the side of the throne room. The moment they were alone, she grabbed his hands with both of hers. "Marcus, please," she whispered urgently. "This is the only way to save your people. My father will not make this offer again. You're asking me to marry you. Yes. To save humanity. Yes. Yes." But she hesitated, and the colors under her skin shifted to that warm gold and silver pattern he had seen before. Not only for that reason, Marcus felt his heart skip. "Princess Lirale. Please, just Lirale. Lirale, what happened in the garden changed something for both of us. I know that. But marriage? Binding our entire species to your empire? It would not be binding," she said desperately. "I would protect humanity's independence. You could govern yourselves, make your own choices, as long as you remained allied with us. Under your protection, dependent on your goodwill. Yes, but, and what happens when you die? Or when you change your mind? What happens to humanity then?" She was quiet for a moment. "I would not change my mind. Because you love me?" The words hung in the air between them. The princess, Lirale, looked into his eyes, and he saw the truth there. "Yes," she whispered. "I love you. I know it's impossible. I know it's foolish. But you showed me what it means to be truly alive. How can I let you be destroyed when you've given me such a gift?" Marcus felt something break inside his chest. This beautiful, lonely creature, who had never experienced real connection with another being, was offering to sacrifice everything to save his people. And her offer was real. He could see it in her eyes, in the desperate way she held his hands. But he could also see the trap hidden within her love. Humanity would survive, but only as long as they pleased one alien princess. Their independence would be an illusion, their freedom a gift that could be withdrawn at any time. They would live or die based on the emotions of a being who had only just learned what emotions were. "Time is up," came the Emperor's voice from the throne room. Marcus looked into Lirale's eyes one last time, memorizing every detail of her face. Then he gently pulled his hands free of hers. "I'm sorry," he said. He saw her face crumple, saw the hope die in her dark eyes. The colors under her skin went completely gray, the color of despair. "Marcus, please. I'm offering you everything I have." "I know," he said softly. "And that's exactly why I can't accept it." Marcus walked back into the throne room with Princess Lirale beside him. The Emperor sat waiting, his massive form radiating impatience. The white patterns on his skin pulsed like a heartbeat, and Marcus could feel the mental pressure from hundreds of Zilithian minds focused on this moment. "Well, human?" the Emperor demanded. "What is your choice? Will you submit to the Empire, accept destruction, or take my daughter's hand in marriage?" Marcus stood straight and looked directly into the Emperor's terrible eyes. In his mind, he thought of Earth. Blue skies, green forests, children playing in sunlight. He thought of every human who had ever chosen freedom over safety, who had died rather than live as a slave. "I reject all 3 options," he said clearly. The silence that followed was complete. Even the Emperor seemed stunned by his words. Princess Lirale made a small sound of pain beside him. "Explain yourself," the Emperor said, his voice dangerously quiet. Marcus took a deep breath. "You offer us submission as subjects, which would destroy everything that makes us human. You threaten us with destruction, which would accomplish the same thing. And you offer us alliance through marriage, which would make us dependent on the goodwill of one person for our survival. The alliance would protect, Princess Lorelei began. No, Marcus said, turning to face her. It would make us pets. Beautiful, well-treated pets, but pets nonetheless. We would live or die based on your emotions, your decisions, your protection. That is not freedom. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. Then you choose death for your species. I choose to let humanity be human, Marcus replied. If that means we die, then we die as ourselves, not as shadows of what we once were. You are insane, the Emperor said. You would condemn billions of your people to destruction for the sake of an abstract principle? Yes, Marcus's voice never wavered. Because a life lived in chains, no matter how comfortable those chains might be, is not a life worth living. The colors under Princess Lorelei's skin were cycling rapidly through patterns Marcus had never seen before. But I love you, she whispered. How can you reject love? Marcus turned to her, and his expression softened. Because real love doesn't ask the beloved to stop being who they are. You say you love me, but you're asking me to betray everything I believe in. You're asking humanity to give up the very qualities that made you fall in love with us in the first place. I would protect you. And what happens when you decide we need to be improved? What happens when our human chaos becomes too messy for you to handle? What happens when the Empire decides that our alliance is no longer useful? She opened her mouth to protest, then closed it. Marcus saw understanding dawn in her dark eyes. You're right, she whispered. I was doing exactly what the Empire always does. Offering gifts that come with chains attached. The Emperor stood from his throne, his massive form towering over them. Enough. You have made your choice, human. Your species will burn for your arrogance. Maybe, Marcus said. But we'll burn as free beings, not as slaves. He looked around the throne room one last time, memorizing the alien beauty of the crystal walls, the impossible architecture, the beings of power and light who ruled an empire that spanned the galaxy. Then he looked back at the Emperor. But before you destroy us, let me tell you what we've accomplished in the 10 days I've been here. What could you possibly have accomplished? Marcus smiled. We've proven that your system doesn't work on everyone. We've shown that there are species in the universe who cannot be bought, manipulated, or scared into submission. And most importantly, we've planted an idea in the mind of your heir. He turned to Princess Lorelei. You felt what real emotion is like. You experienced what freedom means. Do you think you can go back to the old ways now? Can you go back to believing that the Empire's version of peace is worth the cost? The colors under her skin had settled into a pattern Marcus recognized. The deep, thoughtful blue mixed with silver that meant she was truly considering something for the first time. No, she said quietly. I cannot. The Emperor's attention snapped to his daughter. What did you say? I said I cannot go back, Father. He's right. We take everything meaningful away from the species we help. We turn thinking beings into content cattle. The white patterns on the Emperor's skin blazed with fury. You dare question the wisdom of the Empire? I dare question whether wisdom that requires destroying someone's essential nature is truly wise at all. Marcus felt the mental pressure in the room increase dramatically as the Emperor focused his power on his own daughter. But Princess Lorelei stood firm, and Marcus realized that experiencing real human emotion had given her something the Empire could not take away, the knowledge of what she had been missing. You are no longer fit to be my heir, the Emperor said. Then I am no longer your heir, she replied calmly. The Emperor turned back to Marcus, and his rage was like a physical force. You have corrupted my daughter with your primitive ideas. I've shown her what it means to be truly alive, Marcus said. If that corrupts her, then perhaps your definition of purity needs examining. Guards! The Emperor shouted. Escort this human to his ship. He has 1 hour to leave our space before we destroy him. Marcus bowed formally to the Emperor. "Thank you for the audience, Your Majesty." Then he turned to Princess Lorelei. "And thank you for showing me that even in an empire built on control, there are those who can learn to value freedom." "Wait," she said as he started to leave. "Marcus, I want you to know that everything I felt was real. My love for you, my desire to save your people, all of it was real." "I know," he said gently. "And that's exactly why I had to say no. Real love means wanting the best for someone, even when it breaks your heart. The best thing for humanity is to remain free to be human." She nodded, tears like liquid crystal running down her face. "I understand now. And Marcus, thank you for the gift you gave me in the garden. Whatever happens next, I will never forget what it feels like to be truly alive." Marcus walked out of the throne room, knowing he would never see her again. In the corridor, his team was waiting, along with a guard of Zilithian soldiers who escorted them back to their ship in silence. As the New Horizon lifted off from the crystal platform, Marcus looked down at the beautiful, terrible world of Zelthara one last time. He knew that humanity would probably not survive what came next. The Emperor's fleets would come to Earth, and humanity's weapons were no match for Zilithian power. But they would face that destruction as themselves, free, unbroken, human. "Sir," Lieutenant Chun said from her station, "we're getting a communication from the planet." "Princess Lorelei?" "No, sir. It's being broadcast on all frequencies to every ship in the system." Chun's voice was puzzled. "It's the princess, but she's not talking to us. She's talking to the Zilithian fleet." Marcus listened as Princess Lorelei's voice filled the ship's communication system. But she was no longer speaking in the formal tones of imperial authority. Her voice was passionate, alive with the emotion she had learned to feel. "Ships of the Empire," she said, "I speak to you not as your princess, but as someone who has seen what we truly do to the species we claim to help. We strip away everything that makes them unique, everything that gives their lives meaning. We turn free beings into content slaves." Marcus smiled as he listened to her words echo across space. The idea he had planted was already growing, spreading from one mind to others. "You can destroy the humans," the princess continued, "but you cannot destroy the idea they represent. They have shown us that there are beings in the universe who cannot be controlled, who would rather die than live as less than themselves. And once you know such beings exist, how can you continue to believe that our way is the only way?" Marcus felt something like hope beginning to grow in his chest. The Zilithian Empire ruled through the belief that their way was inevitable, that all intelligent species would eventually choose their gifts over the chaos of freedom. But Princess Lorelei was proving that belief wrong, and she was doing it on a frequency that every ship in the fleet could hear. By the time the New Horizon reached the edge of the solar system, Marcus could see the results of her words. Some ships in the Zilithian fleet were breaking formation. Heated communications were passing between vessels as crews debated what they had heard. The Empire had always ruled through certainty, but Princess Lorelei had introduced doubt. And doubt was like a virus in a system built on absolute belief. Marcus's ship jumped to faster than light speed, carrying them away from Zelthara and toward Earth. They would arrive home in time to warn humanity of what was coming. The battle for Earth might still be lost, but the war for the idea of freedom had already begun. Behind them, in the Crystal Palace on a distant world, a lonely princess sat on a throne she no longer wanted, planning the downfall of an empire she no longer believed in. She had learned what it meant to love without controlling, to give without taking, to set someone free even when it broke your heart. Marcus had walked away from her with his pride intact and his armor removed, vulnerable but undefeated. In doing so, he had given her the greatest gift possible, the knowledge that some things were worth any sacrifice. The galaxy would never be the same.